Now, the ripple effect of the almost 24-hour power outage in Cape Town from Monday evening into Tuesday meant that the municipality had to keep a close eye on the 30 sewage pump stations. Our Newzroom Afrika reporter Nasiphi Same joins us live from Cape Town to explain the implications of the power outage. Nasiphi Same, a very good afternoon to you. So tell us more about how this has actually impacted the communities.
Well, Tammy, as you mentioned, the ripple effect of that power outage that Cape Town or Area 7 residents experienced just after 7 o'clock or about 7 o'clock on Monday clearly had more a ripple effect than what we had anticipated, which was, people looking at it as just a power outage of not having electricity. But the ripple effect of it saw the city of Cape Town having to keep a close eye on about 30 sewage facilities. And we're also talking about the fact that the traffic that was caused due to the power outage, including some businesses not being able to operate, other small businesses saying that they actually experienced an increase in the number of customers that they had at the establishment because of the bigger establishment having closed their doors for all those hours. They were able to then take in those customers. But I'm joined here by Dr. Zahid Badruddin, who is the maker member for water and sanitation. Zahid, power outage in the city of Cape Town, Area 7, quite a number of communities impacted. But talk to us about the ripple effect where we're seeing the city having to keep a close eye on sewage pump stations.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people are very quickly drawn to the very visible areas where they don't have electricity. But behind the scenes, our water and sanitation officials were very hard at work on two fronts. On the one, the pump stations to get the water into the reservoir so that we didn't have any water outages, and we were able to overcome that very quickly because the electricity was returned. But then on the other hand, the sewage pump stations, and so this particular area has about 30 of them, which we monitored very, very closely. Obviously, to avoid sewer spills into our environmental areas, up into our streets and so on. A number of them, thankfully, had generators. A number of them required us to very quickly procure some generators to prevent overflows. But some areas, unfortunately, experienced overflows. In the middle of our city, our pump station under the ground experienced one of them, and thankfully there was no people in that particular parking lot where this pump station is. But in Clifton 4, there was a minor overflow onto the beach, which we were able to retain very well. But in the area where we are today, where we have our pump station right on the beach, we weren't able to get to that quick enough because of the difficult area. It's not possible to bring a generator in, and so our environmental health colleagues were here to assess the quality of the water, to put up water pollution signs. And so the cleaning operation continues today, and the water testing for the quality continues today as well.
And then, Zahid, at this particular beach, we saw that, as you mentioned, there was a placard put up about polluted water. But what are the implications, or rather, what would have happened if the power outage continued for more than the 10 hours that it did?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we know as a result of the ongoing load shedding that we've been experiencing for some time as a result of the Eskom outages, our pump stations go on and off, and this doesn't have a very good impact on our infrastructure in terms of wear and tear. One particular outage doesn't have a very big impact, but should it occur over and over again, there is an impact then on the wear and tear, as I've mentioned. But at the same time, one of the priorities that we're driving is our sewage reduction plan. Part of that is to expand and upgrade our pump stations. So where we don't have generators strategically located, or where we weren't able to bring in generators, and where the upgrades are needed to cope with these kinds of freak incidents, then we will be able to do so in the future. But as we stand, of the 30 pump stations that were affected because of the outage, all of them are working as we speak. Very minor environmental impact, but we're also monitoring certain incidents here and there.
And then, Zahid, any problems with water reservoirs? I mean, you speak about the sewage pump stations, but any challenges that you experienced at the water reservoirs? And also, how were residents impacted, if any?
So in terms of the water, specifically the drinkable water, absolutely no impact. Thankfully, the electricity came back just on time to make sure that we were able to get water back into our reservoirs. There was no, residents did not experience any water outage, but we would have been ready to prevent that as well. Very early on in the morning, we were discussing the procurement of generators, and so we were ready to move on onto that. But thankfully, at about 12 o'clock, when the electricity came back on, the reservoirs could start to pump again, and the water could come back into those infrastructures, and so we prevented that. The biggest concern, as I've mentioned, was the pump stations for our sewage, but again, largely we've been able to prevent any negative outcomes, and just in one or two incidents where we needed to contain the issues.
So, Zahid, we understand that the city is also looking at investigating what actually caused this major power outage on Monday that actually lasted for about 10 hours where residents were out of electricity. But what happens should this happen again in another area outside of Area 7, where you're saying that you are looking at procuring more generators and the likes? Have you taken contingency plans for other communities should this happen maybe in Area 4?
Absolutely, and it's a very good point, because besides just electrical outages, we know that land invasion has had a big impact on our infrastructure as well. Illegal land invaders connecting illegal electricity connections to our pump stations that then cause them to trip, which causes then the sewage outflows in particular communities like Mitchell's Plain, like Khayelitsha, and I can go on. And so what we know is that in terms of the sewage reduction plan, our efforts to upgrade and enhance our pump station services, we know that the hardening of the facility is an extremely important part of that, but also to expand and cope with the growing demand on these services.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zahid Badruddin, there, Maker member for the City of Cape Town in the Water and Sanitation Department, giving us an update in regards to not only the water, or rather the electricity power outage that we experienced in Area 4 on Monday evening into Tuesday afternoon, talking about the ripple effect that it had on the city's infrastructure, like the pump station, including water, or rather the reservoirs. But we will be keeping you up to date in regards to, the continued ripple effect of the power outage. But for now, back to you.
Nasiphi Same, thank you so much for that update. She comes to us live from Cape Town.